Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Kinseth. I'm the Director of Education here at the Meadows Museum, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all for our program this evening. This program is one example of the many benefits of membership here at the museum. So if you're not a member already, I invite you to stop by our front desk this evening to join. If you are, thank you. We cannot do what we do without you. It's through your support that we can put on exciting programs like the one this evening. So this evening's program is part of the Meadows ARCO Artist Spotlight program. The 6-year initiative, which was announced in 2019, focuses on highlighting exceptional contemporary Spanish artists who have limited recognition here in the United States, and gives them a platform to present their work through an installation here at the Meadows Museum. And our distinguished guest this evening, Dr. Teresa Lanceta, is the second artist to participate in this program. And tonight she'll be joined in conversation with Dr. Talia Weltman-Cisneros. So Talia Weltman-Cisneros is a lecturer of Spanish here at SMU. Prior to coming to SMU, she earned her PhD from Duke University and taught a variety of Spanish language, literature, and culture courses, as well as community-engaged learning courses in cities across the United States. Her research stands at the intersection of Afro-Latin American and Afro-Mexican cultural studies and digital humanities. She collaborates with Afro-Mexican visual artists and educators as an ally to empower, uplift, and celebrate their cultural heritage and representation. And it's been our pleasure here at the Meadows Museum to collaborate with Dr. Weltman-Cisneros and her students over the past few years, and we're very honored that she's joining us this evening. We're also deeply honored to have the esteemed artist Teresa Lanceta with us tonight. Teresa Lanceta is celebrated for her imaginative, tapestry-based artworks that aim to transcend assumptions about the materials themselves by inspiring the viewer's imagination. Her work brings together an array of formal approaches. It's sometimes figurative, sometimes abstract, sometimes a piece will combine textiles, while others feature single textiles that have been drawn on, painted on, or otherwise embellished. She adopted weaving as her preferred form of artistic expression in the 1970s, seeing it as a medium ideally suited to bridge the divide between art and craft. Through her travels, she's met with and drawn inspiration from many different people and cultures, and was particularly influenced by the Romani and Moroccan nomadic weavers. She earned her PhD in art history at the Universidad Complutense in Madrid, and has taught at the Escola Massana in Barcelona. Her work is part of the collection of numerous institutions and has been exhibited at, among other venues, the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia in Madrid, and more recently at the Museum of Contemporary Art Barcelona and the Institute of Modern Art Valencia. And we are very proud to now say that the Meadows Museum is on this list, as the Meadows ARCO Artist Spotlight Teresa Lanceta exhibition is now on view. So I do encourage you all to go and view that following this evening's program. So with that, I would like to welcome our interpreter for this evening, Fabiana Martinez, Dr. Weltman-Cisneros, and Dr. Teresa Lanceta to the stage.
How's the volume? Everyone here, please let us know at any time if we need to hold the mic closer, speak up, repeat, anything needed. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Yeah, I'm a teacher here, so yeah. Buenas tardes. Bienvenidas, bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Welcome. Qué orgullo, qué honor. We are so honored and excited to have this excellent opportunity to have this discussion with Dr. Lanceta and really come together as a community tonight to journey through her work and her experiences and her stories that are also echoed in the stories that we will see in her extraordinary pieces. And I want to thank especially Amanda and Superwoman, Superhero, Anne, for these extraordinary opportunities to not only get to know unique ways of being and and immersing ourselves in the arts and visual arts and textile arts, but also to be able to converse with the artists themselves. Qué privilegio, no? What a privilege.
Bueno, quiero pedir disculpas por no hablar en inglés, pero bueno, espero que aún así fluya la conversación.
I want to apologize because I don't speak English, but anyway, I hope the conversation can flow.
Gracias. So I thought we'd begin our journey thinking about what has inspired Doctora Lanceta to engage, immerse, and choose textile art as her medium of expression and artistic development. And so going back several years, no, hace muchos años, las chispas, what were those sparks that inspired you to look at, to, and then work with textile art and weaving?
Yo no tenía ningún interés en ser artista, no tenía ningún pensamiento en hacer este trabajo.
I didn't have the least interest in becoming an artist. I didn't have any idea of doing this kind of work.
Pero he de decir que mi padre, cuando yo era pequeña, nos llevaba a un campo de algodón. Conocéis bien la planta del algodón. Eso me emocionó, me dejó algo muy profundo, ese campo tan bonito, blanco. Y cuando ya era muy mayor,
So I have to say that my father, when I was a little girl, took me to a cotton field. I imagine that you know how the cotton plant, what it looks like. And that experience really marked me.
Ya encontré una madeja de algodón muy bonita en una tienda, muy extraña, muy próxima a eso que yo recordaba de pequeña.
And then later in life, I found a yarn of cotton in a store. It was very strange, very rare looking, and that was a reminiscence of that experience I had had in that cotton field.
Lo guardé mucho tiempo y no pensaba usarlo, me parecía tan bonito, y al cabo de mucho tiempo de verlo, hice un pequeño tapiz.
So I kept that yarn. I didn't want to touch it because it was so beautiful. And then later in time, I made a little tapestry, very, very little tapestry with that piece of yarn.
Tejer me atrapó. No sé, recomiendo a todo el mundo que no tenga paciencia como soy yo, que no soy una persona muy impaciente. Recomiendo que tejan. Tejer es un tiempo muy alargado, un tiempo muy casi un nirvana, porque es muy lento y muy repetitivo y deja la cabeza completamente libre.
So I recommend for anybody who doesn't have any patience, like I don't, to try weaving, knitting, because this is a very interesting experience and it will make your impatience disappear. It is a very elongated process. It's slow. It's kind of a nirvana.
También no solo esto me atrapó. Esto me despertó un interés por los tejidos.
And this experience not only caught me, but also was something that started in me this interest about weaving.
España es un país de pintura, de mucha pintura, como se puede ver en este museo, pero es un país de grandes tejidos también. Y acabo de ver algunos en el museo, que hay unos pequeños tejidos medievales, y claro, ¿cómo no pensar que eso es arte? ¿Cómo no pensar que eso es algo importante?
So Spain, as you know, is a country of painting, but as you can see here at the Meadows, but also it is a country of beautiful tapestry. And I went to the DMA today and I saw some pieces of tapestry, medieval, and how could we dare to say that that is not art? That is art.
Y esto bueno, me ha hecho seguir adelante. He tropezado con una cierta, porque yo tejo hace 52 años, he tropezado con una cierta resistencia en un mundo del arte, digamos.
I have been weaving for 52 years, but I have stumbled upon certain resistance in the world of art.
Pero al mismo tiempo he encontrado mucho apoyo. Creo que soy una persona muy privilegiada porque he podido hacer mi trabajo de una manera fuerte, profunda y bueno, con dificultades, pero como todo, como en la vida.
But at the same time, I've encountered a lot of support. I think I'm a privileged person, and I was able to do my work. And well, it's like life. Life is like that.
So I think that's a really great segue when we talk about the history of tapestry in Spain, and these different moments in Spain itself, where those tensions of acceptance and expulsion have been echoed in art for a very long time. And I'd like to start off by sharing with us some of your earlier work and think about the influences and patterns and inspirations of where you used the ideas that were born into your weaving work.
Durante muchos años, lo que me interesó del tejido es respetar su técnica y sus materiales. Por lo tanto, mis dibujos siempre han sido muy propicios a la propia técnica. Pero poco a poco descubrí y conseguí que el tejido fuera también un lenguaje para decir otras cosas.
So for many years, I wanted to respect the technique of weaving, and that's why my drawings in the beginning were very adapted to that respect for the technique and the materials of weaving. But later also, I found that I could create a language with my weaving.
Por ejemplo, lo podéis ver en la exposición. He querido traer para Meadows, he querido traer unos tapices, un proyecto que hice hace años y que duró mucho tiempo, sobre la alfombra española del siglo XV. Si puede ver adelante.
That's why I brought to the Meadows a project that I did many years ago, but it is a special project depicting the art of carpeting in Spain in the 15th century.
Cuando en España había tres religiones que convivían a veces bien, a veces mal, pero que estaban ahí conviviendo en ese territorio, los musulmanes tejían unas extraordinarias alfombras, tejían unos extraordinarios tejidos para los vestidos de los reyes. Y bueno, todavía sabemos que el periodo andalusí fue un periodo muy rico en el tejido.
And this is from the time in which in Spain 3 different religions lived together, sometimes in better terms and sometimes in worse terms, but they lived together. And especially the Moors were the ones who created extraordinary carpeting or rugs, and also they wove amazing clothing for the kings, for the royalty.
Bueno, esto lo explico para decir lo del lenguaje.
And I'm explaining this to go more deeply into the language of weaving.
Descubrí, no hay apenas en España alfombras del siglo XV, hay muchas en museos americanos, en museos de Estados Unidos, en Filadelfia, en Miami, en Detroit, hay muchas. Y cuando vi algunas de ellas, me di cuenta de que eran similares a las del Oriente, por eso pertenecían a una misma cultura, pero muy diferentes en cuanto que tenían algo mucho más triste. Los octógonos son dibujos que hacían en Siria y en Persia regulares, eran octógonos abiertos, muy abiertos. Aquí en España eran muy estrechos. Eso me dejó muy sorprendida.
So in Spain, unfortunately, we don't have many rugs from the 15th century. There are many more exposed here in the United States, like in Philadelphia, Detroit, Miami. And I saw those, and those are more related to the East, the Far East art. For instance, they show a lot of octagons. But it was interesting because when I was comparing those rugs that I saw in America with the ones from Spain, the Spanish ones seem sadder. And for instance, these octagons that were quite open um, in other rugs, not the ones from Spain. In the Spain ones, they were quite small, like very very narrow.
Esto me hizo abrir todo un proyecto, porque quería comprender por qué en la misma cultura textil se transformaba tanto. Bueno, ahora no sé si es el momento de explicarlo porque hemos de avanzar, pero esto, bueno, lo diré brevemente, creo que era porque se sentían verdaderamente oprimidos, estaban en expulsión del territorio, no de toda España, sino estaban los guerreros cristianos iban expulsándolos hacia el sur. Y los mismos señores de la guerra que los expulsaban compraban estas alfombras, porque eso sí, siempre los conquistadores saben apreciar el patrimonio, es muy raro que no.
So this situation made me start the project. I'm not sure if this is the moment to explain to you what that was about. That I'm going to do it shortly. So I thought that these rugs in Spain were sadder than the ones in Syria, for instance, because these people who were weaving were oppressed and about to be expelled from Spain. They were with that menace in their back, and the conquerors of the territory of Spain were pushing them out, but at the same time, they were buying the tapestry and the rugs they produced. And it's interesting because we can tell that a lot of the conquerors are very savvy regarding art, and they appreciate art.
Bueno, os recomiendo que vayáis a Miami a verlo, a ver una de las piezas más grandes que hay, y a Filadelfia. El Museo de Filadelfia tiene una exquisitez total, muy bien conservada.
You can go to Miami to see some of these pieces I'm talking about. Also, Philadelphia, the Museum of Philadelphia has a wonderful show of these pieces and very, very well kept.
Y bueno, si alguien quiere saber más, luego podemos hablar. Vamos a dejar que siga.
So if someone is interested, we can talk about this later. We need to continue with the interview.
Well, I think that is a very interesting way as we think about language and expression and visual arts, textile art, the intersection of design and experience. And this coming together, diseño y experiencia, ese diálogo, this dialogue that we see in your work of design, very intentionally thought out the process and the communication of experience, of storytelling, and how we see this in your early work expressing the experiences of the Moorish community in Spain in the 1500s and 1400s.
Bueno, una cosa que me gustaría decir es que no creo que haya en esta sala nadie que crea que Osiris o rece a Osiris, no creo, ¿no? Osiris, no sé cómo se dice en inglés, Osiris. Osiris,
Osiris, yeah.
o Horus, pero en cambio yo creo que todos aceptamos que eso es algo muy potente.
So I need to say this. I imagine that there's nobody here in this room who prays to Osiris or to Horus, but we understand that that was incredibly important. That was very important.
Esto es uno de los poderes del arte que tiene el arte de cambiar de significado continuamente. Y no es lo que uno ve, porque tampoco, sino lo que después el que lo va a recibir, recibe. Que este también forma parte del arte y lo transforma todo, ¿no?
And this is the amazing power of art that resignifies and gives a new meaning to things. And it's not what you see really, is what that meaning becomes eventually. I think that's the power of art.
Bueno, en este aspecto es porque, quiero decirlo porque es algo que tengo muy presente cuando trabajo.
And this is something that is very present whenever I'm working, this idea.
Que el que lo va a recibir tiene todo la posibilidad de transformar lo que yo digo.
That the receiver of this piece of art has the power to transform what I'm saying.
And it's interesting to think about this constant evolution and transformation, even within your own work. If we look at some of your later, more recent pieces, here we can come back to these. Here we have more designs. If you want to speak to the patterns and how you're seeing the incorporation of different elements, designs, and the language that you are using as a form of expression in these later pieces.
Las piezas que he traído sobre la alfombra española del siglo XV, las que están aquí en el museo, representan una parte de este trabajo. Porque también cuando lo empecé a hacer me di cuenta que los pintores del siglo XVI, como son Berruguete, los pintores españoles del siglo XVI, Berruguete, Jorge el Inglés, ellos pintaban estas alfombras españolas, no pintaban como Holbein que pintaba las orientales, pintaban las españolas.
So what among some of the pieces I brought here related to my project on the rugs from the 15th century, what I wanted to emphasize was the idea that later some painters in Spain, like Berruguete or Jorge the English, George the English, when in their art, in their paintings, we find that they were painting Spanish rugs, not Oriental rugs, like Holbein, no? Yeah, so Holbein, for instance. So that's part of the pieces I brought to this exhibition at the Meadows.
Por esto también quise usar los temas que estos pintores hacían, ¿no? Pero claro, los temas de estos pintores son muy actuales. Es la Virgen huyendo a Egipto, la matanza de los inocentes. Estos son los temas de esos años, de ese tiempo. Pero es un tema actual, es un tema que todavía la gente huye a Egipto.
So I wanted to replicate in some way the themes that these painters that in the 16th century were addressing, but at the same time, their subjects or themes are very modern subjects. Because, for instance, the Virgin and the families, the Holy Family running from Egypt, or people running from a place. Those are very extremely actual themes.
Por eso este proyecto que no he traído dibujos sobre las alfombras, porque bueno, quería hacer una representación de varias partes de mi trabajo, pues esto me duró varios años y es una parte de mi trabajo que lo considero más lenguaje para decir algo que el propio hacer.
So I haven't brought to the Meadows some of the drawings related to this project, but I'd like to say that sometimes part of this project is for me more important in the sense of creating a language more than the real object I'm creating.
And if we move further in your work, your most recent, we will move here. We really see a different technique, different choices of colors, materials, and I would really like us to explore that evolution in your work to your most recent tejidos, right? And see not only in design and connection to community, how these speak a language of the mosaic, especially of the Raval neighborhood in Barcelona, and what this other reflection of another moment in other communities in Spain, now contemporary, how they are reflected in the language of your pieces.
Bueno, había dos cuestiones. Una es que yo quería, me propusieron en el MACBA de Barcelona, que es un museo que está en un barrio muy bonito, muy amado por todos, pero con muchos problemas, porque es un barrio, bueno, tiene muchos problemas en sí mismo.
So there are two issues. One is they proposed me this project for the Magda Museum in Barcelona, which is in a beautiful neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood that is going through a lot of deep problems, many problems.
Y que es un barrio que a mí me gusta mucho, yo lo quiero mucho, pero todo el mundo quiere ese barrio. Todo el mundo tiene una afinidad con ese barrio.
I love this neighborhood very much. Everybody loves this neighborhood.
Cuando me lo propusieron, yo quería hablar de esto, de este barrio. Pero también había otro motivo, y es que yo quería algo más rápido, más directo, porque tejer es muy lento y me había pasado años y años tejiendo.
So when I got the proposal, I was very happy. I wanted to talk about this neighborhood, but at the same time, and this is the second issue, I wanted something more faster and more
Más directo.
more direct. And I knew that if I had started weaving, it would have taken many years.
Entonces decidí hacer estas telas que tienen pintura y tienen también cosidos.
So I decided to create these pieces with fabric in which you can find painting and also stitching.
Y el cosido que tiene es uno de mis favoritos, me gusta muchísimo, porque es el cosido que se usaba, al menos en España, yo creo que en todo el mundo, para zurcir, que es para reparar las telas rotas.
And this type of stitches I'm using is one of my favorites because it is, and I think it is everywhere, it was the type of stitch used to repair, to mend damaged fabric.
Me gustaba mucho cuando yo era pequeña ir al pueblo de mi familia y ver los hombres con un pedazo aquí de otro color cosido para remendar. Eso me parecía, me gustaba mucho, no lo entendía y me gustaba mucho. Y esto ha quedado
When I was a little girl and I went to visit my family's town, I remember seeing men with pants and with patches of the different fabric, and I absolutely loved seeing that. I didn't understand why that was the way it was, but I loved it.
Y creo que además debemos respetar esta técnica porque es una técnica que actualmente, con estos problemas que hay por los ecológicos, ¿no? En todo el mundo, ¿no? Aquí he venido con mucho abrigo y no hace frío. y en España estamos asados.
And so I think this also relates to the idea of all the ecological problems we have. I came here with a lot of, coats and clothing, and then I realized it's not cold. And in Spain, we're being really cooked at this time.
Entonces, bueno, decidí usar fundamentalmente para representar a este barrio dos colores, el rojo y el negro.
So to represent this neighborhood I was going to work on, I decided to use two main colors, red and black.
Y usar la diagonal.
And use the diagonal line.
Porque es una forma muy dinámica y que enfrenta bien los colores.
It's a very dynamic shape that contrasts the colors very well.
Siempre he pensado que uno de los opuestos al negro no solo es el blanco, es el rojo no es un opuesto, es un dialogante con el negro.
So I think that, well, we know that white is the opposite of black, but also I think that red is a color that has a dialogue with black. An interlocutor, that's what that means.
Con el rojo quería decir, porque es un barrio que recibe continuamente emigración, ahora está recibiendo mucha emigración de Pakistán, de Irán. Entonces, gente muy con muchos hijos, con muchas necesidades, pero con mucha vitalidad, porque los tienen muchos hijos y van pasando corriendo por la calle y entonces lo que ves en la calle es mucha vitalidad, mucha vida.
So in this neighborhood right now, there's a lot of immigration, mostly from Pakistan or Iran, and these are families with a lot of children, and what you see is, you can see their problems, but also their vitality, their enormous vitality, and surrounded by children and going up and down.
Me he equivocado, creo que de Irán no vienen.
De Irán,
no. Vienen de Pakistán y de la India.
Pakistan and India. Not Iran.
Irán no viene.
No. Okay.
Entonces, el negro me representaba, son callejuelas medievales, son calles muy estrechas, y el negro era la oscuridad que hay allí, lo oculto, pero al mismo tiempo la sabiduría de lo oculto.
So the black represents the very medieval narrow streets in this neighborhood, and also represents what can be hiding there, the occult in those streets, but also the wisdom of those streets.
Bueno, y podéis ver dos en las salas.
And you can see two pieces in the museum.
Y espero que os gusten.
And I hope you like them.
He querido mantener los bordes más irregulares y no he querido forzar, aunque están trabajados en un bastidor de madera, porque para coserlos luego los he quitado y he querido mantener las irregularidades.
So I wanted to keep the irregularity in the borders of the piece, even when I was using a frame, of course, to weave. Then I released the frame and I kept the irregularities.
La irregular me parece que demuestra más el movimiento, muestra más un movimiento y es más afín a ese barrio.
And these irregularities show more the idea of movement, and I think it's more related to what this neighborhood is.
When thinking about this neighborhood and these communities, especially the women in the Raval neighborhood and how they've inspired your art. And we have this, I just love the theme of woven together and dialogue and interconnectedness, which is so powerful in this form of artwork, in this process. How has your work impacted them as much as they have influenced and impacted you?
Bueno, me sorprende que también yo impacte.
I'm very surprised that I can also have an impact on them.
Porque yo siempre estoy impactada por ellas.
Because I'm always impacted by them.
También es bueno, un poco mucha alegría pensar que también es un diálogo, ¿no? Que es un diálogo que, claro, tejer es un código abierto, digamos, tejer es un código, es 0 y 1.
This makes me very happy. But also remember that all these idea of languages and dialogue to weave is a code. Yeah, it's zeros and ones. It's a pure code.
Es un código muy antiguo, es de los primeros códigos pero es un código binario, es un código como el de los ordenadores.
It's a binary code like the computers, and it's ancient.
Si hay alguien que sepa mucho de códigos, tengo una pregunta. ¿Ha sido bueno para la humanidad o era mejor vivir sin códigos?
I have a question. If there's anybody here who knows about code, my question is it has been good for humanity, this code thing, or
Siempre tengo esta duda.
I'm always doubting this. I don't know.
We'll ask Siri. No le preguntamos.
Me va a preguntar a ti, al teléfono.
Entonces, bueno, al ser un código binario, es un código pero además es un open source, ¿no? Es un código abierto.
It's an open code. It's binary, but it's an open code.
Porque todo el que sabe tejer puede repetir lo que ha hecho otro.
Because anybody who knows how to weave can repeat what someone else have done before.
Claro que hay tradiciones que son muy complejas, que necesitas haberlo aprendido en tu propio hogar, pero si aprendes, enseguida puedes acceder.
So of course there are some traditions in weaving that are very complex and you have to have learned them at home, but once you learn them, you can move forward and do it.
Bueno, como podéis ver, encuentro muchas cosas en los tejidos y cosas que se van renovando. Por eso no añoro la pintura. No añoro en absoluto.
So as you can see, I always find new things in weaving, and that's why I don't miss paintings at all.
And so we can really celebrate this dialogue and this interconnectedness, ¿no? La interconectividad. Your work brings in memory, history, storytelling from many centuries ago, and also engages in dialogue of new technologies. If we think of your work as open source coding, right? And what does that mean for us in a moment where access, inclusion, equity, diversity, when these are from history to now equally important, how do you see your work maintaining this generational interconnectedness, como la interconectividad intergeneracional?
El arte me mantiene joven, no físicamente, pero sí alerta, porque me gusta mucho todo lo que se hace. Me gusta mucho comprender qué hacen la gente que empieza a trabajar y también me gusta mucho los que trabajaron hace siglos, con lo cual esto me mantiene como casi sí.
Art keeps me young, maybe not physically, but mentally, and very active. And I'm always curious about what's going on in art, what new people are making in art. But also I love, the ancient people, the artists of the past. So I'm always active.
Y la interconectividad no ha sido siempre como uno desea. A veces surge bien, a veces surge con complicación. He tenido mucha relación con los tejidos del Medio Atlas marroquí, que es un país todavía vivo en cuanto a tradición textil y muy creativo en cuanto a tradición textil.
So sometimes interconnectivity works as we wish and sometimes it doesn't, but I have a very good relationship with the Morocco weavers. It's a very active group and I have a very good relationship with them.
Pero nunca es tan romántico como se ve desde fuera, porque hay una separación de modos de hacer que hay que solventarlo. No es que eso aparte, sino que eso hay que resolverlo.
but nothing is as romantic as it may seem from outside. And sometimes these relationships need to be rooted and taken care of.
Por ejemplo, los tejidos navajo me encantan, me gustan mucho, incluso intenté hacer el diálogo, pero lo abandoné porque no había en España tejidos navajos, no tengo acceso a Marruecos, yo viajo continuamente, pero y entonces me quedó como, bueno.
So I started a project, I was trying to start a dialogue with Navajo weaving, but then I left it because I didn't have any of those tapestries in Spain. And Morocco, I can go anytime I want, but it was not as easy, so I abandoned that project.
Actually, I want to wrap this up and make sure that we have time for questions and more conversation. To close this portion of our program tonight, you are weaving communities together, women, allies from the Raval neighborhood, your coautoras. I love that term, your co-authors, right? What does it mean to be a co-author in the art world, in textile art, intergenerations, and then globally? And we have this slide with the Navajo, Hopi, and also arpilleristas, las arpilleras in Chile, who also were women who repurposed and recycled scraps of material, often from their loved ones who had been disappeared, as a statement, as a language. How, to close this portion of our evening together, what does it mean to you to be part of this global, interconnected community of textile and woven arts?
Para estar interconectado, no siempre puedes usar el textil. Por ejemplo, he usado siempre el textil, pero no siempre. Lo he usado muy a menudo, pero no siempre. El trabajo que hice en Barcelona no fue con tejedoras, fue en una escuela de este barrio, donde habían 37 idiomas. Se hablaban 37 lenguas.
So to be interconnected, sometimes you can use weaving, but not all the time. And sometimes I use weaving, but not all the time. And when I did this project in the neighborhood, it was not through weaving. It was not with weavers. I did it in a school, in a group in which 37 languages were spoken.
Estos niños, que muchos acababan de llegar, no estaban, bueno, a un nivel que en las escuelas españolas se pide a sus edades, pero a lo mejor hablaban 4 idiomas, uno de ellos. Entonces era algo que se tenía que aprovechar, esta riqueza.
So sometimes these children were just arrived in Spain, and intellectually or academically, they were not at the level that Spanish schools would accept them at their age. But on the other hand, some of these children spoke 4 languages. So there had to be a way to use this richness.
Fue un trabajo muy bonito y duró 2 años, duró un tiempo también de la pandemia. Y bueno, hemos hecho un trabajo de arte. Ha sido ellos hicieron toda una serie de trabajos que lo compró el MACBA. Al final es una de las piezas que el MACBA dispone.
So this was a work that went on for 2 years. It was during the pandemic, and they created this piece of art that basically finally the MACBA acquired, and is there in the museum in Barcelona.
Sí, en España la inmigración es muy reciente, no de hace unos años, pero no es como en Estados Unidos o en otros países donde la inmigración es muy antigua. En España es muy reciente, con lo cual ha sido una sorpresa todo esto tan rápidamente. Personas donde que también están tan sorprendidas como nosotros, ¿no?
So the process of immigration is recent in Spain. It has been going on for some years, but of course it's something new for us. It's not like what immigration is here in the United States. That is an ancient concept. So it's something surprising for us, but it is also surprising for the immigrants.
Well, I think we've had a really wonderful opportunity to look closely at the pieces and your journey, your trajectory in your work. I really want to use the rest of the time to open up the conversation, ask questions, and we'll be walking around with a microphone, and please do use that, speak into that. Any questions about what we've talked about or adding on, expanding, or in a different direction, please raise your hand, let Anne know, and she can come to you with the microphone.
I was curious, what do you think the importance is of like living an interesting life or good adventurous life to be a good artist? I mean, is that something you would ever seek out? Like seek out different perspectives and things?
Bueno, pienso que hay mucha diversidad. Puede uno ser muy aburrido y ser muy buen artista, pero el que le pide la necesidad de su propio ser muy aventurero, pues debe hacerlo en la aventura. A lo mejor en su camino de aventura puede crear muchas cosas, pero no tiene por qué serlo. Yo creo que Mondrian, me refiero a bueno, no, ¿cómo se llama? El que siempre repite el que repite los bodegones. No. Bueno, incluso Mondrian. Yo creo que no sé si sería una persona muy divertida. Yo creo que no sé.
There's a lot of diversity.
Tampoco me lo imagino muy divertido.
So there's a lot of diversity, and I think different artists are different, and there must be someone who needs an adventurous life to create. But I imagine that someone very boring can create great art also. Like I think Mondrian, for instance, and I don't think Velázquez was very adventurous either. Quite boring, but there we are.
Pero sí. Pero bien. Morandi.
Mm-hmm.
Pero creo que él, si como es joven y pregunta esto, es porque a ti te gusta la aventura. Entonces, actuar en la aventura.
So since you are asking this, I imagine you like adventure. So if you like adventure, go ahead.
Hola, mi nombre es Isabela Zamora. Es estudiante y yo soy estudiante y artista. That's all I have.
So my name is Isabela Zamora, and I'm a student and an artist.
So my first question is, what advice do you have as a young artist, kind of entering a world like just full of so many people and so many like challenges and obstacles?
Obstáculos que se encuentra, los consejos que le daría a un joven artista.
Yo creo que cuando sois muy jóvenes traéis un lenguaje que no lo tenemos los demás. Y ese es lo primero que tenéis que saber sacarlo y transmitirlo a los demás. Yo cuando en mis clases he dado muy pocos años de clase porque no podía hacer tanta cosa, pero en mis años de clase a veces me quedaba muy sorprendida porque no me gustaba una cosa que hacía un alumno, pero no sabía si era porque yo no sabía comprender este lenguaje que cada generación trae, o era el alumno que no lo hacía bien.
So you young people bring your own language. Every generation has its own language. So what you need to do at your age is to bring that language out and show it. And I had the experience when I was teaching classes, and I taught very little because I didn't have time. But sometimes I was facing a piece of art that I didn't like. And my debate was to understand if I didn't like it because I didn't speak that language that the new generation was bringing, or it was because the student was bad. So,
y pienso también que hay cosas que no se sabe, los jóvenes, los niños, no saben, pero saben. Y esto es lo que hay que defender. Lo que uno no sabe todavía, porque uno todavía no está, bueno, tú ya eres mayor, pero los niños no saben lo que ocurre, pero saben que ocurre algo. Y cuando se hacen mayores comprenden lo que... Y yo creo que a vosotros os va a pasar lo mismo, los que empezáis a trabajar en el arte.
So for you who start working on art, what I think is sometimes young people and mostly children don't know, but know. And they know that something is going on. They don't know what is going on, but then eventually when they are older, you are already that old. That's but then they get to understand that thing that they didn't understand, but they knew something was going on. So that's what you need to preserve.
Paciencia. You told us that patience.
Patience, yes.
I think
we have a question here, and I think this will be, we'll do this question and one more before we conclude.
I started painting a while back, probably 20 years ago. So I'm still a student in it. And I wanted to ask you, because I have some art in my home, some from professors and things like that, and some of myself and some of my husband's. What do you have in your home?
¿Qué arte tiene usted en su casa? Porque ella tiene algo de ella, de su esposo, de los profesores. ¿Qué arte usted tiene en su casa?
Bueno, mi familia no ha sido nadie artista.
Well, in my family, nobody has been an artist.
Mi familia era campesina por parte de mi padre, de mi madre, y la familia de mi padre trabaja en cosas, oficinas y todo eso. No quería yo eso, ¿eh? Lo que me enseñaron es que oficinas, trabajo con horario y todo eso, no. Ese fue su gran enseñanza, aunque yo decía, esto que hace mi padre, no.
So my maternal family, they were peasants. My paternal family, they were people working in administration offices. And what I knew is I didn't want any of that. And what they taught me is to be away from very regimented and scheduled jobs, to be far from that.
No, entonces no. Pero a todos les gusta lo que hago, ¿eh?
But they all love what I do.
Ellos me apoyan, están contentos.
¿Tiene otras obras de otros artistas?
Sí.
¿Quiere revelarlo?
Sí, tengo Kippenberger, no sé si conocéis.
So they're asking her what art she has, if she wants to tell us.
Tengo una colección humilde porque nunca he comprado de colección. Siempre he comprado otras cosas, pero tengo una colección buena de tejidos.
I have a very humble, because I have never bought a lot or a big collection, but I have a humble collection of weavings.
Incluso no quiero tener grandes piezas, prefiero que las tengan otras personas, porque yo no puedo cuidarlas tanto, ¿no?
And I don't want to have big pieces because I cannot take care of them properly, so I prefer someone else to have.
Y en cuanto a pintura, pues tengo Kippenberger, tengo
some Kippenberger,
de Kupil, Oelen, son pintores bastante conocidos. Mark Dagley, que es un pintor que vive en Nueva York.
Mark Dagley is a painter who lives in New York.
Pero bueno, muy modesto.
It's very modest.
Siempre cambia.
Primeramente, un montón de gracias a usted, señora Lanceta.
Many thanks.
Qué maravilla. I have a question. Do you know about American quilting traditions? Have you looked at quilts as you've traveled around? And what are your impressions of quilting traditions?
El no poder hablar, el tener que interrumpir, me ha hecho no recordar esto que, claro, me parece extraordinario. Me parece extraordinario como concepto de aprovechar telas y mezclar telas diversas como el resultado. Los resultados son extraordinarios. Yo tengo libros de los kilt, de patchwork en general y claro, son piezas. Yo nunca lo he hecho porque no soy fina, no soy paciente cosiendo y ha de ser como lo que ves. Pero también es un poco patchwork, ¿no? Lo que yo hago.
So I forgot about this, and I'm sorry. I apologize because I had to be interrupting myself to have this interpreted. I forgot this, but my idea is it's absolutely extraordinary. Quilting is extraordinary, not only because of the technique itself, the combining of these little pieces that to recycle these pieces and they put them together, but also the results are amazing. I have books about quilting. I think it's really extraordinary.
Bueno, y mi madre hizo uno porque ella era aficionada a hacer y hay uno, todavía vive por suerte, y tiene uno a medias que he pactado con mis hermanos para que me lo den a mí y yo lo acabe.
So my mother, who's still alive, has done some quilting, and she has one that is half done. So I agreed with my siblings that at some point I will receive that piece and I will finish. It's something she said before in the last question is that she doesn't do quilting because she doesn't have the patience to do this sewing. She's not that refined, from what she says, in sewing. So but what she does includes some patch knit.
Well, as Jose Maria comes to retrieve our wonderful presenters, I would like us all to just give a round of applause. And as they exit, I just want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. This has just been a lovely hour. And our exhibition, Teresa's exhibition, is currently on view as of today. So I do encourage all of you as you exit to head up to the galleries and to see some of these really wonderful works in person. Thank you so much for coming.